I trusted him. That's what hurts the most. When you're 77 years old and your nephew, your own flesh and blood, offers to help you with something as simple as updating your passwords, you don't think twice. You don't imagine that in 3 hours your entire life savings will be gone, that every account you've spent decades building will be locked, that you'll be sitting in your kitchen in Scottsdale, Arizona, staring at your laptop screen with a sinking feeling in your stomach, unable to log into your own bank account. But that's exactly what happened to me. My name is Marianne, and I'm going to tell you a story that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. A story about betrayal, about fighting back, and about how close I came to losing everything I'd worked for my entire life. This isn't one of those stories you read about happening to someone else. This happened to me. And if you're watching this, if you're a woman over 65 like me, please listen carefully, because this could happen to you too. Before I begin, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your city and state in the comments. Let's build a community of women who look out for each other. Now let me take you back to March 2024. The desert landscape outside my window was just starting to bloom with those beautiful Arizona wildflowers. I'd lived in Scottsdale for 32 years, ever since my husband James and I retired here from Minnesota. James passed away 6 years ago from a heart attack, and I'd been managing on my own ever since. Managing pretty well, I thought. I had my routines, my book club on Tuesdays, volunteering at the community center on Thursdays, my watercolor painting class on Saturday mornings. I wasn't some helpless old woman who didn't understand technology. I had a laptop. I paid my bills online. I video called my daughter in Seattle every Sunday. I was doing just fine. But I'll admit, all the news about cybersecurity and hackers had been making me nervous. Every time I turned on the television, there was another story about someone getting scammed, about passwords being stolen, about accounts being hacked. My bank had even sent me a letter recommending I update all my passwords and enable something called two-factor authentication. I stared at that letter for 3 days, trying to work up the courage to deal with it. The truth is, I had the same passwords for almost everything. I know, that's exactly what you're not supposed to do. But I had a system that worked for me. Passwords I could remember. Combinations of James's birthday, our anniversary, our daughter's name. Simple things that made sense to me. But that letter kept nagging at me. What if someone did hack into my accounts? What if I lost everything because I was too stubborn to update a few passwords? That's when I made the phone call that would change everything. I called my nephew, Kyle. Kyle was 34, worked in IT for some tech company in Phoenix. He'd always been good with computers, even as a kid. At family gatherings, he was the one everyone turned to when their phones weren't working or their Wi-Fi was acting up. "Aunt Marianne," he'd answered on the second ring, his voice warm and friendly. "This is a nice surprise. How are you doing?" "I'm doing well, sweetheart," I'd said, feeling a little foolish even bringing it up. "Listen, I have a question for you. I got this letter from my bank about updating my passwords and this two-factor thing, and I'm just not sure I'm doing it right. Would you mind helping me figure it out?" There was a pause on the other end. Then Kyle said something that should have been my first warning sign, but at the time, it just sounded considerate. "You know what, Aunt Marianne? That stuff can be really tricky to explain over the phone. Why don't I come by this Saturday? I can sit down with you and we'll get everything updated properly. Make sure you're fully secure. It'll take maybe an hour, 2 tops." Relief washed over me. "Oh, Kyle, that would be wonderful. Are you sure you don't mind?" "Of course not. You're family. Besides, this is important. You'd be surprised how many people our age, older people, get targeted by hackers because their passwords aren't secure enough." Older people. The phrase stung a little, but I brushed it off. He was trying to help. We set it up for Saturday afternoon, March 16th. I even made his favorite lemon pound cake, the recipe his mother, my sister Claire, used to make before she passed away from breast cancer 10 years ago. I thought it would be nice, a little thank you for taking time out of his weekend to help his elderly aunt. Kyle arrived right on time, 2 p.m., driving his black Honda Civic. He was dressed casually in jeans and a polo shirt, carrying a small backpack. He'd put on some weight since I'd last seen him at Christmas, and his sandy blonde hair was getting thin on top. But his smile was the same, that easy, charming smile that had always made him everyone's favorite. "Something smells amazing," he said as he hugged me at the door. "Lemon pound cake just like your mother used to make." His eyes lit up. "You didn't have to do that, Aunt Marianne." "Of course I did. Come in, come in." My laptop set up at the kitchen table. We sat down and Kyle pulled his chair close to mine. Too close, I realize now. Close enough that he could see everything on my screen, every keystroke. "Okay," he said, opening his backpack and pulling out a small notebook. "Let's start by making a list of all your accounts, bank accounts, email, social media, anything that has a password. We want to make sure we secure everything." I started listing them off. My bank, Wells Fargo. My email, an old Yahoo account I'd had for 20 years. My Facebook account where I kept in touch with old friends from Minnesota. My Amazon account. My medical portal for the Mayo Clinic. Kyle wrote each one down carefully in his notebook. "Great. Now, do you know roughly how much is in your bank account? Just so we can verify everything's correct after we update the security." I should have found that question strange. Why would he need to know how much money I had? But I didn't think about it. This was Kyle. This was family. "Well, let's see," I said, logging into my Wells Fargo account. "I have about $180,000 in my savings account. That's from James's life insurance and what we saved over the years, and about $45,000 in checking. Then I have my investment account with Fidelity. That's got about $55,000 in it." Kyle nodded, writing everything down. $280,000 total. My entire life savings, earned over 43 years of marriage, 2 decades of James working as an electrical engineer, my own career as an elementary school teacher. Every penny we'd saved, every sacrifice we'd made, every vacation we'd skipped to build our nest egg. I just told him exactly what he wanted to know. "Perfect," Kyle said. "Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to update each password to something really secure, a mix of letters, numbers, and symbols that would be almost impossible to hack. I'll write each one down for you in this notebook, and then you can change them later to something you prefer, but at least you'll be secure in the meantime. Sound good?" "That sounds perfect," I said, smiling at him. For the next hour, Kyle worked methodically through each account. He'd type away on my laptop, occasionally asking me to verify a security question or confirm a text message code that came to my phone. Each time, I handed him my phone without hesitation. "Can you read me that code?" he'd ask. 573291, I'd say. He'd type it in and we'd move on to the next account. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known from where I was sitting, was that Kyle wasn't just updating my passwords. He was methodically locking me out of my own life. He changed my email password and immediately updated the recovery email to one I'd never seen before. He enabled 2-factor authentication on my bank accounts, but he linked it to his phone number, not mine. He changed every security question to answers only he would know. He even went into my phone settings when I went to the bathroom and forwarded all my text messages to his number. I came back to find him smiling at his work. "All done, Aunt Marianne. You're all set up and secure now." He handed me the notebook. Inside were 10 passwords, each a random string of letters and numbers. "Keep this somewhere safe," he said. "Maybe in your bedroom drawer. You don't want anyone finding this." "Thank you so much, sweetheart," I said, hugging him. "Let me pack up some of that cake for you." We chatted for another 20 minutes while he ate a slice of cake. He asked about my watercolor class, about my book club, about whether I'd heard from my daughter lately. Normal conversation, family conversation. There was nothing in his demeanor that suggested what he'd just done. When he left, he hugged me at the door. "Love you, Aunt Marianne. Stay safe." "Love you too, sweetheart." I closed the door feeling grateful, feeling relieved, feeling like I'd finally done the responsible thing by securing my accounts. I had no idea I'd just handed a thief the keys to my entire life. 3 days passed, normal, quiet days. I painted in the morning, went to my book club on Tuesday evening where we discussed The 4 Winds by Kristen Hanna, had lunch with my friend Barbara on Wednesday. Thursday morning, March 21st, I woke up early. The sun was just starting to rise over the McDowell Mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I made my coffee, black, no sugar, the way I'd been drinking it for 50 years, and sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop. I had a few bills to pay: electric, water, my car insurance. I logged into my Wells Fargo account, or at least I tried to. Password incorrect. I frowned. I pulled out Kyle's notebook from my bedroom drawer and carefully typed in the password he'd written down for my bank account. Character by character. Capital L, lowercase r, the number 7, an exclamation point, lowercase m, and so on. Password incorrect. A flutter of worry started in my chest. I tried again, even more carefully this time. Password incorrect. Your account has been locked due to multiple failed login attempts. Please contact customer service. My coffee went cold as I stared at that message. Locked out. How was I locked out? Kyle had just set this up 3 days ago. I called Wells Fargo customer service. 38 minutes on hold. Finally, a representative named Jennifer came on the line. I'm locked out of my account, I explained. I tried to log in and it says my password is incorrect. I can help you with that, ma'am. Can I have your account number, please? I provided it. And can you verify your date of birth? I did. And what's the email address associated with this account? I started to give her my Yahoo email, the one I'd had for 20 years. I'm sorry, ma'am, that's not the email we have on file. The email associated with this account is kylemorris2024@gmail.com. My blood went cold. That's not my email, that's my nephew's email. I understand your concern, ma'am, but I can only provide account access to the person listed on the account. If you're saying this isn't your email, then I need to verify your identity through other means. Can you answer the security questions on file? Yes, of course. What is your mother's maiden name? That was easy. Sullivan. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. The answer on file is Rodriguez. Rodriguez? My mother wasn't Hispanic. Her name was Margaret Sullivan. She'd never been anywhere near Rodriguez. That's wrong, I said, my voice rising. That's not right. Someone's changed it. Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but for security purposes, if you can't answer the security questions, I can't give you access to the account. You'll need to visit a branch in person with 2 forms of ID. But this is my account. I've had it for 32 years. I understand, ma'am, but these are our security protocols. You can visit any Wells Fargo branch with your driver's license and another form of identification, and they'll help you there. I hung up, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Something was very wrong. I tried logging into my email. Password incorrect. I tried my Fidelity investment account. Password incorrect. I tried everything, every single account Kyle had helped me secure. Locked out. Locked out. Locked out. My breath was coming in short gasps. I felt like the walls were closing in. I grabbed my phone and called Kyle. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. Kyle, it's Aunt Marianne. I'm locked out of all my accounts. None of the passwords you wrote down are working. Can you call me back as soon as you get this? Please. No response. I called again an hour later. Voicemail. I called again that afternoon. Voicemail. By evening, I was frantic. I called my daughter, Sarah, in Seattle. Mom, what's wrong? You sound upset. The whole story came tumbling out. Kyle's visit, the password updates, being locked out of everything. Mom, Sarah said slowly, and I could hear the dread in her voice. Check your bank balance. Use the phone app if you can, or call the customer service line and ask them to tell you your current balance. Why? What? Just do it, Mom, please. I called Wells Fargo back. Another 30-minute wait. When I finally got through and verified who I was with the branch representative, it required me to answer questions about my account history, transactions from years ago that thankfully I remembered, and asked for my balance. The words that came back made my vision blur. Your savings account currently has a balance of $3,247. Your checking account has a balance of $891. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the kitchen table. $3,247 in savings. I'd had $180,000, $891 in checking. I'd had $45,000. Over $220,000 was gone, just gone. "Mom? Mom?" Sarah's voice was shouting from my phone. I picked it up with numb fingers. "It's gone," I whispered. "Sarah, the money's gone." "Did you authorize any large transfers?" No, I didn't do anything." "When were the transfers made?" I asked the Wells Fargo representative to check. She put me on hold for what felt like hours. When she came back, her voice was gentle, pitying. "Ma'am, I show multiple large transfers made over the past 3 days. On March 19th, $50,000 was transferred to a Venmo account. On March 20th, 3 separate transfers totaling $120,000 were made to various external accounts. On March 21st, that's today, $50,000 was transferred this morning to a cryptocurrency exchange." If you're watching this and you've ever experienced betrayal, if you've ever felt your world crumble beneath your feet, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button. This community is for all of us who've survived the unthinkable. We need to stick together. "Mom, you need to call the police right now," Sarah was saying. "Right now. And we need to call the FBI. This is wire fraud. This is interstate financial fraud." "Sarah, I don't even know what—" "Mom, listen to me. Kyle stole your money. Your nephew stole your life savings. We're going to get it back, but you need to report this immediately." That night was the longest of my life. The Scottsdale Police Department sent an officer to my house around 9 p.m. Officer Martinez was professional and kind, but I could see the pity in his eyes as I told him what happened. An elderly woman scammed by her own family member. It's a story he'd probably heard 100 times. "Ma'am, I need to be honest with you," he said after taking my statement. "These cases are very difficult. By the time victims realize what's happened, the money's usually already been moved multiple times. The fact that he used cryptocurrency makes it even harder to trace." "So, I'm not getting my money back?" My voice broke. "I didn't say that, but you need to understand this is going to be a long process. We'll file a report, and I'm going to recommend your case to the FBI's Cybercrimes Division. With the amount stolen and the fact that it crossed state lines, those transfers went to accounts in different states, this falls under federal jurisdiction." Sarah flew in from Seattle the next morning. She took emergency leave from her job as a nurse practitioner, left her husband Mark with their 2 kids, and came to Arizona to help me fight. We spent the entire weekend documenting everything. Sarah created spreadsheets tracking every transaction, every account, every piece of evidence we could find. She called Wells Fargo again, called Fidelity, called my credit card companies. She put fraud alerts on all my accounts. She even called Kyle a dozen times from her phone. He didn't answer for her either, but we saved every unanswered call as evidence. "We're building a case," she said grimly. "If the FBI won't take this seriously, we'll make them." Monday morning, we drove to the FBI's Phoenix field office. The building was imposing, all concrete and tinted glass, and I felt so small walking through those doors. We'd called ahead and had an appointment with Special Agent David Chen from the Cyber Crimes Unit. Agent Chen was in his early 40s, Asian American, with sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He listened to our story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm going to be straight with you. The fact that this was done by a family member actually makes the case more complicated. Defense attorneys will argue that you gave him permission to access your accounts, that he was helping you, not stealing from you. But I didn't give him permission to steal my money. I believe you, but we need to prove intent. We need to prove that from the moment he walked into your house, his plan was to commit fraud." "How do we do that?" Sarah asked. Agent Chen tapped his pen against the legal pad. "We need to trace where the money went. We need to find evidence that he planned this. Texts, emails, internet searches. We need to catch him trying to access the accounts again or move more money. And ideally, we need him to admit to something incriminating." "You want me to talk to him?" I asked. "Would you be willing to? We could set up a recorded call, get him talking about what he did." The thought made me feel sick, but I nodded. If it helps get my money back, yes. Over the next week, Agent Chen's team did something I didn't even know was possible. They got warrants for Kyle's phone records, his bank accounts, his internet history. And what they found was damning. Kyle had been planning this for months. In December, he'd searched how to steal from elderly relatives without getting caught. In January, he'd joined online forums about cryptocurrency and money laundering. In February, he'd searched Elder Financial Abuse Penalties Arizona and Statute of Limitations Financial Exploitation. And 3 days before he came to my house, he'd texted a friend, "About to score big. Old people are so trusting, LMAO." When Agent Chen showed me that text message, I cried for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Not because I was sad, I was beyond sad, but because I was so angry, so furious that someone I'd loved, someone I'd baked cakes for and bought Christmas presents for and welcomed into my home, could be so cruel. But the evidence got stronger. The Venmo transfer? It went to an account in Kyle's name. The cryptocurrency, traced to a wallet Kyle had set up. The external accounts? 2 of them belonged to Kyle's roommate, someone else the FBI was now investigating as a potential accomplice. "We have enough to arrest him," Agent Chen told us on April 3rd, 18 days after Kyle had come to my house. "We're coordinating with the Phoenix Police Department to pick him up tomorrow morning." I should have felt relief. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was tired and old and betrayed. The next morning at 6 a.m., FBI agents and Phoenix police officers executed a warrant at Kyle's apartment in Tempe. They arrested him in his bedroom, still wearing his pajamas. They seized his laptop, his phone, his notebooks, his cryptocurrency wallet codes. They seized his roommate, too, who apparently had received $30,000 of my stolen money in exchange for letting Kyle use his bank account. Kyle was charged with wire fraud, identity theft, elder financial exploitation, and money laundering. Federal charges that carried a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison. Sarah got the news first. She called me from the FBI office where she'd been waiting for updates. "Mom, they got him. Kyle's in federal custody." I sat down on my couch, the same couch where Kyle used to sit during family Thanksgivings, eating turkey and watching football like he didn't have a care in the world. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we wait. The U.S. Attorney's Office will prosecute. Agent Chen says with the evidence they have, Kyle's lawyer will probably recommend a plea deal." Waiting was torture. Days turned into weeks. Meanwhile, I was trying to survive on less than $5,000, the remnants of what Kyle had left in my accounts. Sarah helped me with groceries. My friend Barbara helped with gas money. I felt like a charity case, a helpless old woman who'd been stupid enough to trust her own nephew. The shame was almost worse than the financial loss, but then things started to turn around. Wells Fargo, after reviewing the case and the FBI evidence, refunded $120,000 of the stolen money. They admitted their security protocols had failed. Kyle shouldn't have been able to change my email and security questions without additional verification. It wasn't the full amount, but it was something. Fidelity also refunded the $55,000 from my investment account after Agent Chen provided them with the evidence that it was fraud. By late April, I had $175,000 back, still short by over $100,000, but no longer destitute, no longer dependent on my daughter's charity. Kyle's lawyer did recommend a plea deal. On May 15th, almost 2 months after Kyle had stolen from me, we went to federal court in Phoenix for his plea hearing. I sat in the second row with Sarah. Kyle was at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his hands shackled in front of him. He looked thinner, scared. He didn't look at me once. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Reeves, reviewed the plea agreement. Kyle would plead guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of elder financial exploitation. In exchange, the other charges would be dropped. The prosecution was recommending 8 years in federal prison. "Mr. Morris," Judge Reeves said, her voice sharp, "do you understand that by accepting this plea, you're admitting that you deliberately defrauded your aunt, a 77-year-old woman who trusted you? That you stole her life savings under the pretense of helping her?" "Yes, Your Honor," Kyle mumbled. "Speak up." "Yes, Your Honor, I understand." "Do you have anything to say to your aunt?" Finally, Kyle turned to look at me. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. But I didn't care. I didn't care if he was sorry or scared or regretful. "Aunt Marianne, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I needed the money and I don't know what I thought. I'm sorry." I stood up. The judge looked at me, surprised, but she didn't stop me. "You're sorry?" My voice was steady, stronger than I expected. "You stole $280,000 from me. You stole money that my husband spent his entire life earning. Money we saved for our retirement, for our grandchildren, for our future. You looked me in the eye, you ate my cake, you hugged me, and you stole from me. And now you're sorry?" Kyle's face crumpled. No, you don't get to cry. You don't get to pretend this was some mistake. You planned this. The FBI found your searches, your texts, your planning. You targeted me because you thought I was old and trusting and easy. Well, you were wrong about that last part. I sat back down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Reeves looked at Kyle with something close to disgust. "Mr. Morris, what you did represents one of the most cowardly forms of theft I've encountered in my 20 years on the bench. You exploited your aunt's trust and her generosity. You stole not just her money, but her sense of security, her peace of mind, her ability to trust her own family." She paused, shuffling through the papers in front of her. "I've reviewed the prosecution's recommendation of 8 years. I've also reviewed the victim impact statement submitted by Mrs. Patterson, and I've considered the particular cruelty of this crime. This wasn't a stranger who hacked into an account. This was a family member who was welcomed into his aunt's home." My heart was pounding. Sarah squeezed my hand. "Therefore, I'm sentencing you to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You'll be required to pay full restitution of $280,000 plus interest. You'll have no contact with Mrs. Patterson or any member of her family. And Mr. Morris, I hope you spend every day of those 12 years thinking about what you've done." The gavel came down. Kyle's lawyer started to object about the sentence being higher than the plea recommendation, but Judge Reeves cut him off. "The plea deal gave me discretion, counselor. I'm using it." They led Kyle away. He was sobbing now, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no victory, just exhaustion. Outside the courthouse, Agent Chen found us. "Mrs. Patterson, I wanted you to know we've recovered another $67,000 from the cryptocurrency exchange. Kyle had converted most of your money to Bitcoin but hadn't moved it all yet. We were able to freeze and seize it. Combined with the bank refunds, you should be getting back about $242,000 total." I did the math in my head. I was still short $38,000, but $242,000 was more than I'd had a few weeks ago. It was enough to live on, enough to rebuild. "Thank you," I said to Agent Chen, "for everything, for taking this seriously when you could have dismissed it as a family matter. Ma'am, what happened to you is a crime, a serious crime, and I'm glad we could help bring your nephew to justice." Sarah and I flew back to Seattle together. She wanted me to stay with her family for a few months to recover, to heal. I did. I spent the summer in Washington playing with my grandchildren, going to therapy, slowly learning to trust again. The money came, back in stages. Wells Fargo's refund, Fidelity's refund, the seized cryptocurrency funds. By August, I had $242,000 back in my accounts, new accounts at a different bank, with security measures so complex I had to write them down in 3 different places. I returned to Scottsdale in September. My house felt different, like it belonged to a different version of me. The Marianne who had lived here before March 16th was gone. She'd been replaced by someone harder, more cautious, less trusting, but also stronger, also more aware, also more determined not to be a victim. I went back to my watercolor painting class. Barbara threw me a welcome home party. My book club had read 3 books while I was gone, and I had to catch up. Life slowly started to feel normal again. Kyle is serving his sentence at a federal facility in California. He'll be eligible for parole in 10 years if he demonstrates good behavior. I don't think about him much anymore. Sometimes I see families at the grocery store, nephews helping their elderly aunts with shopping, young men being kind to older women, and I feel a pang of something. Not quite sadness, not quite anger. Maybe just acknowledgement that not everyone is trustworthy, even when they should be. The $38,000 I never recovered? I've made peace with it. Judge Reeves ordered Kyle to pay full restitution, but realistically, a convicted felon working prison jobs for pennies an hour isn't going to be able to pay that back in my lifetime. Maybe someday when he's released, he'll send me payments. Maybe he won't. I'm not holding my breath. What I learned from all of this isn't some simple lesson about being careful or not trusting people. Life is more complicated than that. What I learned is that when someone betrays you, you have a choice. You can let it destroy you, or you can fight back. You can be a victim, or you can be a survivor. I chose survivor. Sarah helped me set up proper security on all my accounts. I use a password manager now, a secure app that generates random passwords for everything. I have 2-factor authentication enabled, but this time it's actually linked to my phone, not someone else's. I check my bank statements weekly. I'm vigilant in a way I never was before, and I talk about what happened. I tell other women my age to be careful, to verify, to never give anyone, not even family, complete access to their accounts. I volunteer at a senior center now, teaching a class on cybersecurity for older adults, teaching them the warning signs I missed, teaching them that being careful isn't the same as being paranoid. The FBI later told me that Kyle had been researching his crime for months, had targeted me specifically because I was elderly and lived alone, and had planned to disappear with the money. His arrest likely prevented him from doing this to other family members or other vulnerable people. So if nothing else, my story stopped him. It's November now. 20 months since Kyle's. Sat in my kitchen and stole my life. I'm still here. I'm still painting watercolors. I'm still reading books with my club. I'm still calling Sarah every Sunday. I'm still living my life. The difference is, now I know that trust isn't something you give freely. It's something you give carefully, wisely, with boundaries and protections in place. My name is Marianne. I'm 77 years old. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I survived. That's my story. Thank you for listening.